Big Tigger is out here wow. Everybody thinks that they should tell Amber Rose how to be a parent. Young Miami gets her first #1 and well-deserved highest spot she's ever had on the Billboard Hot 100. Jermaine Dupri is suing Sony. And I told y'all the internet was gonna figure out who Drake's girlfriend was, whether it's true or not. My name is Wi-Fi and culture lives here. What's up, y'all? Welcome to episode 2 of Culture Lives Here. My name is Wi-Fi. Like I said, make sure that y'all hit that subscribe button and follow me on all my socials. That's going to be at the Wi-Fi with 2 eyes _ on TikTok and the Wi-Fi on Instagram. Let's get right into it. Big Tigger. Big Tigger's out here bugging. And look, let me make this very clear before I get into this. There will be never, ever, in my opinion, anything cool or fly about DV. At the end of the day, real people go through these real things. I actually grew up in a household where there was DV going on. And I have to say, there's definitely some residual trauma there. So me talking about this is not making light of that situation. But I have to say, the internet's reaction to this and everything that's going on is a lot more layered and interesting than you may think. Let's break it down. So first things first is the video that I first saw, one that's going viral right now. It's a video that's in color, which is very important, and there's someone who's filming it probably with a cell phone talking about, Mr. Tigger, leave her alone, don't you see all those cracks on the floor? And in the video, you can see Tigger trying to get his phone back from his wife, Alicia Brown. And there's a lot of things about that video that felt a little bit over the top, and that's what the internet latched onto. And then the memes started. And then you got people recreating the actual video. And everyone's recreating the video leaning on this one part of it, that Alicia Brown seemed to be leaning very heavily into this overreacting type of situation when it came to exactly what Tigger was or not doing to her in the video that we were watching. And that makes complete sense when you look at it in that context. And then the fact that shortly after that video went viral is when everyone heard that Tigger had been arrested in Atlanta. People were saying like, well, he got arrested for that? That's crazy. She should have just gave him his phone back. That's crazy. And for a second, I kind of thought the same thing too. But I noticed something that a lot of people didn't notice. And I won't lie. I noticed it, but it didn't make sense or it didn't click in my mind until after I saw the other video. See, there's a lot of people that saw this video that did not see the other video. And the other video is the black and white ring cam footage that TMZ obtained. And in that video, Tigger is also in another kerfluffle with his wife, Alicia Brown. And that one looked a little bit more aggressive than the one that we saw that went viral. And that's what made me start to get curious. Like, okay. So a lot of people are leaning on the idea that Alicia Brown was overreacting. But now I'm looking at it like, Tigger was kind of playing a role too in that video. I mean, look at it like this. He clearly knew that he was being video recorded. You know that because there's someone obviously in the room with them saying, Tigger, don't you see all those cracks on the floor? Blah, 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 blah. And Tigger is very, very animately saying, I'm not doing anything. He's being super gentle about it. He's being super it seems like he's being more cautious than he would have been if nobody was watching. And when you see the black and white ring cam footage, you see that he didn't think that that footage was going to leak. Nobody was in the room watching. Nobody had their phone out recording. And because of that, you saw the real Big Tigger in that situation. Now, that is actually the situation that led to his arrest. It is not the color video that went viral. So when people saw the video later on, a clip of Alicia Brown with a scar on her head or whatever from an injury that she received from when her head hit the door frame, that is from the actual ring camera video. And that incident happened in May. So Tigger definitely deserves what he got. He belongs exactly where he's at. But the way that these videos leaked onto the internet and the context in which people received it made people think that this video led to this situation where he was arrested. But in all reality, it was the other video. And now it makes complete sense. Where the story gets even more interesting is that right after Big Tigger got locked up, Alicia Brown got arrested too on kidnapping charges, which is strange. Apparently, she had outstanding warrants in Maryland from a 2019 incident. I won't get too much into that because, there are children involved, so I don't really want to jump into that too deep. But yeah, so there's a whole lot going on right here. What we do know is that Big Tigger or his peoples have said that he will be stepping back away from his radio hosting duties and things of that nature. Tony Yayo and Uncle Murder on their podcast or whatever were talking about it, and Uncle Murder said something that made a lot of sense to me. He was like, you know what? I never liked that guy. And Tony Yayo asked him why, and he was like, you can't trust somebody with a smirk like that. And it's not to make light of the situation, but now that you think about it, there is something a little bit weird about that Big Tigger smirk. They say you can't trust a big butt and a smile. I guess you can't trust a bald head and a smirk neither. Now, there are also another legal situation that is stemming from this, and that is going to be from Big Tigger's co-host. The V103 co-host fired a federal defamation suit against Alicia Brown for claiming that her and Big Tigger have been having an affair. Some people are going to keep their ears to the streets to see how this unfolds. I'm probably not going to be one of them, but who knows? Moving on to some more drama. Amber Rose makes some controversial comments that really shouldn't be that controversial. Amber Rose made a comment about what she won't tell her children. And I feel as though that the internet should have just left this one alone. But the context, again, the context of what she was talking about is what people were reacting to, so they could only hear it one way. This is what she said. Amber Rose refuses to tell her kids that they have to work 10 times harder just because they're black. And that's a statement we've all heard, especially if you grew up in a black house. You're going to have to work 10 times harder just to be as good. Her argument is that skin color won't stop them from being great and that they should just work as hard as everyone else. Now, some people praised it as building confidence and avoiding this victimhood mindset, which I totally understand. I'm a person who grew up in a house where I was told that I was going to have to work 10 times harder. And all it did for me was make me feel as though that no matter how hard I worked, I was never going to be able to be great at anything. And this is not, I don't think my parents or my grandparents or my aunties and them did this maliciously. I don't think they did this in a way to hurt me. I think they believed that they were preparing me for what the other side of what people are saying, which is acknowledging the racial barriers that sometimes may arise and cause some struggles, which is true. There are racial barriers out here in this world. They exist. We can't ignore them. But I kind of understand what Amber Rose is saying. She's just saying, look, I don't want to put that in their minds that if they don't do this much more than everyone else, that they can never reach their goals, which is just not true. You can reach your goals just by working just as hard as the next person. There are some opportunities at certain times that may be harder for you to get just because of the structure of the world based on racial identity and different things like that. And not even just that. If we're going to talk about that, let's talk about gender inequality too. Should we be telling women and little girls that they're going to have to work 10 times as harder in order to get the types of jobs that men do? Because 20 years ago, that argument might have made sense. But in today's day and age, women is out here getting the bag. I think it's because anytime there's a conversation where Amber Rose speaks and it has anything to do with color or race, people are just going to respond to it a certain way because of who Amber Rose is. Also, I have to throw this out there. I cannot avoid saying this. Amber Rose's kids are in a completely different category than your kids. This is no disrespect to your kids, and this is not saying that Amber Rose's kids are greater. I'm just saying that they kind of are in a position where they truly are not going to have to work 10 times as harder to reach their goals. Now, they may have to be 10 times as greater for us as people to accept them at whatever they do because both of their parents are famous. But I don't even think that that's even part of this argument here. So what do y'all think? Jump in the comments and say what you will. And let's move on. The internets have figured out who Drake's mystery girlfriend is. I told y'all last week that there was this situation where Ben Don was on live stream. He FaceTimed Drake. Drake asked him, wait, are you live? and he quickly boofed on him when he realized that the stream was live, and Drake got caught with his arm around some mystery woman. And I told y'all last week, I personally don't really care like who Drake is dating or who he's not dating, but I was super invested in how long it was going to take the internet before they confirmed who she was, even if there's no proof of confirming it. And like I said, the internet doesn't need proof. All the internet needs is enough insinuations and enough people to repeat it enough times for it to become fact. And they will create an entire dossier about this whole situation. And that is exactly what happened. So, apparently, the woman whose Drake's arm was around in the stream with Ben the Don is a Toronto influencer by the name of Lauren Harris. And this is not the first time that Drake and Lauren Harris have been rumored in some relationship stuff. In fact, part of the backstory that the internets are putting out there is that the song Little Birdie was about her, and that he also referenced her on Iceman somewhere else, even though I haven't quite been able to find what exactly they're talking. And nobody involved has confirmed anything. Lauren Harris hasn't said anything. You know Drake ain't saying anything. He pretty much is just falling back and letting the internet argue with themselves, which is exactly what I knew was going to happen. I just didn't know how fast it was going to happen. And apparently it took 4 days. That's it. 4 days from the time that Ben the Don stream went is when the internets have collectively confirmed that the name Lauren Harris. So we'll see if there's any truth to this. We'll see if any of this actually comes out as official information. But I just thought that it was really funny. And just because I talked about it last week, I figured I was going to bring it back this week, just like I'm going to bring something else back. That's going to be later when we talk about sports. Because y'all tried to chop me up about that Joel Embiid and AD thing, and I need to explain to y'all why it makes much more sense than you think it does. Now, with some music, Young Miami has scored her first #1 with Spend That. And I'm happy for her. Like, for real though, I knew Spend That was a hit record when I first heard the first clip on TikTok. And I was like, yo, she got one, yo. She got a good record right here. It's perfect timing for the summer. It fits her brand, if you will. You know what I'm saying? It makes sense for that to be a Young Miami record. And it was a lot more chill and vibey than what you may have expected from her. The record has reached #1 on urban mainstream radio, rap airplay, and the mainstream R&B and hip-hop airplay charts. It's climbed to #5 at rhythm radio and has reached #19 on the Billboard Hot 100. And all of these are personal highs for her as a solo artist. And a lot of it had to do with social media's embracement of the record. Over 2 million people recreated videos featuring this song, and it peaked at #4 on a TikTok Viral 50. And there are a lot of songs that go viral on TikTok. There's a lot of songs that hit the TikTok Viral 50 that aren't able to crack the top 40 or the top 25 of the Billboard Hot 100 from artists who you would consider as bigger artists than Young Miami. So the correlation between the two things is a lot more impactful than a lot of people are giving it credit for. And again, it's because it's Young Miami. There was also a lot of cultural momentum behind this record. She performed it at the Knicks championship parade, where the whole culture was watching. I mean, even if you weren't a Knicks fan, because of the pure nostalgia of Madison Square Garden, New York City, and all those things put together, you kind of had to be a little bit happy that the Knicks won the championship. I mean, if your team wasn't in the finals, you know what I'm saying? Hey, I'm cool that the Knicks won. The whole arena was singing along to the song at the BET Awards, and even Monica worked the song into her Essence Festival headlining set. So not just the fans, but people in the industry are embracing this record. It just has a certain feel to it. There are some people saying that Spend That might even be Song of the Summer. And whether you agree or not, I think that there is a strong argument for it. If it's not, I want to hear you tell me, what do you think Song of the Summer is? And if it's not Spend That, then go ahead and make your best pitch for what it should be. So in other music news, Jermaine Dupri is suing Sony for $18 million. And spoiler alert, I hope he get all that and then some. As a matter of fact, honestly, whether or not an artist is happy with their record label, whether or not they feel as though they've been treated well, notice how I said feel as though they've been treated well, I think that at some point in time in every artist's career, they may have to sue a label. I mean, because sometimes that's the only way you're actually going to really be able to see the money. No one really knows where the money always goes. That is just how corporate America is designed, especially in the music industry. In fact, when it comes to normal recording contracts, you can ask for an audit and they can tell you no. And then you can go get your lawyers involved and ask for an audit, and they can say, sure. But your contract states that if you request an official audit and we grant it, you can only go back a certain amount of years. And sometimes the only way to really compel the books to open up is to sue. A lot of times the lawsuit isn't always about what we think it is. It's more or less about getting a peek at the money, because it's all about the money. This situation is quite different. Let's break it down. So Dupri filed a breach of contract suit against Sony. He's saying that Sony has been shorting him on royalties for decades, and he wants $18 million plus interest and attorney fees. That plus interest is a number that we can't really calculate right now. The headlines are saying $18 million, but if Jermaine Dupri wins this, I'm pretty sure the judgment is going to be way bigger, because we don't really know what the interest rate on decades of missing royalties are. So to give some backstory, Jermaine Dupri and So So Def first signed with Sony in 1992, and the agreements between the two companies were revised at least 7 times between that time and 2006. Back to what I was saying earlier about artists need to sue their labels is exactly here. The suit is claiming that there was a systematic pattern of underreporting, which is exactly what I'm talking about right here. No one really knows where the money goes or what the money's supposed to be. And they're saying that a lot of times when these contracts were revisited or revised, that they were revised to include money that should have been paid already years ago. So look at the hustle is what we're saying going on. Jermaine Dupri signed the deal with Sony for So So Def. They have an original deal. A year or two later, they revise that contract. When they revise that contract, they add some money in there. It looks like Sony is giving him something, but in all reality, Sony is just quietly tucking in something that they were already supposed to have been paid him, meaning that the amount of money that he should have been getting in royalties from them has never been clearly represented on any official documents. And this is the only way for him to get the money. There's a few specific examples that were cited. One of them involves Escape. There's allegedly $960,000 in royalties that are still owed to him from their debut album, and $2.2 million allegedly withheld over 2 Criss Cross albums, plus claims tied to Mariah Carey, Bow Wow, Usher, Jaquan, and Bone Crusher. And I mean, for a guy as legendary as Jermaine Dupri to have to go through this, I have to wonder, how many more of these royalty lawsuits do we think are going to be coming in the future? Because I'm pretty sure that, especially based on how this works out, and if JD gets the judgment that I believe that he is deserved to get, this is probably going to set off a chain reaction from a lot of our legacy producers, because there's probably a lot of them out here that have been in similar situations, and these labels need to kick that bread out. What do y'all think? Jump in the comments, you know what I mean? And let's chop it up. And let's move on. So Chris Brown and Usher have launched the R&B tour. And of course, Chris Brown and Usher fans alike are loving what's going on. It was super hype when the information first dropped. But of course, nothing happens in the culture without some controversy. And controversy is definitely at the center of this, where people are already speculating on how they should replace Chris Brown on this tour because of things of Chris Brown's past. Now, they both played their first ever stadium show at Cleveland. This is the first time either one of them have headlined in Cleveland since the 2010s. And of course, as soon as videos hit social media, the backlash started. And then it started with a lot of people on Usher's side saying that we love it, but we wish that he didn't bring Chris Brown on tour because of Chris Brown being problematic. And then that was kind of weird because Usher is kind of problematic too, if you think about it, or at least that's what the Chris Brown fans are saying. So in a situation that was supposed to unite two fan bases, now we have two fan bases that are kind of bumping heads with each other, arguing about which of their favorite R&B king is more problematic than the other. Chris Brown for some of the situations back in the day with him and Rihanna, and Usher for his support of Diddy and other things that are neither been confirmed, but you know how rumors do in the culture. Now, for the 3-hour show where 50 songs or something like that is being performed, a lot of people are saying that the aesthetics of both of these artists are clashing, and it's resulting in a very weird ambiance. Chris Brown's sets being more dystopian and grungy, Usher's sets being more luxurious, and that for some reason they're just not meshing well together. And I hear people's opinions, but then when I see the video clip or something like Nice and Slow transitioning into It Depends, I feel as though that I want to be at that concert. So I'm not really sure if people are giving this a fair shake this early on. Sometimes tours need to work out the kinks after a few shows, you know what I'm saying? Because you never know how well something's going to work until you try it out, see if it works or not. And maybe that's what's going on here. But all in all, people are still buying tickets as we speak to go to these concerts. And I'm pretty sure they're all going to be sold out, which I'm not really sure if the same can be said about Jay-Z's situation right now. Now, let me pause, because anytime I open my mouth about Jay-Z, the Jay-Z fans seem to come at me in troves, and they always have something negative to say. All I'm doing is saying what I see happening. That is all. And the ticket sales have seemed to slow down. And I don't think it's lack of demand for people wanting to see Jay-Z. I actually think it's the symptom of a bigger problem, something that I spoke about last week in terms of sneakers, but the same thing happens in music when it comes to tickets. The bots and the resellers have a large volume of tickets, and now they're trying to figure out a way to move them because demand seems to be lower for certain New York shows. And the tickets right now that were over $300 are now listed down to $150 to $183 on websites like SeatGeek. Jay-Z did add a new September 4th London show to go along with the September 10th Paris show and the October 23rd show in LA at SoFi Stadium, celebrating 30 years of Reasonable Doubt and 25 years of The Blueprint. Now, his 3-night Yankee Stadium run sold out almost immediately when the tickets went live, and that's what prompted this third extra innings date. But now, as the shows get closer, the ticket prices have dropped. So, starting to look a little crazy. I mean, now look at it like this. The shows were announced, immediately sold out. If they immediately sold out because of the fan demand, then why would the ticket prices be getting slashed right now? There's only one answer to that, and that is because bots and resellers is who bought all those tickets, not the actual fans. So we don't actually really know the temperature of the fan demand to go see these Jay-Z shows. And now the resellers getting closer to the date have all these tickets, and they need to figure out a way to get rid of them. And now they're going to end up taking an L, so they don't take a complete L. Because if they still have tickets, once the show starts, they can never make any money back off of it again. And I have to ask myself, is this really telling of how much there is a demand right now for a Jay-Z performance? I know, sounds like I'm hating, but the numbers are numbering. Now, there's some unconfirmed speculation that one of the Yankee Stadium nights may be scaled back due to a softer demand. And this is one of those things where I'm for sure going to keep my eye on because I definitely want to know what happened. Let me jump into some sneakers real quick. Well, only really one sneaker in particular, and that's going to be the Kobe Rucker Park Air Force One that they just gave the first looks of. Nike revealed the sneaker with a white base, orange accents that really gives a lot of nostalgia to that time back in the day when Kobe Bryant showed up to Rucker Park. Something that a lot of people, especially my age, will never forget. NYC is stamped on the tongue and on the heel, and just looking at the sneakers and the whole idea behind what they're commemorating just brings back those memories of that exhibition run in Harlem. And see, that Rucker Park appearance wasn't just about street basketball, hip hop, and the culture, but it was really a turning point in the sneaker industry because that was the moment that Kobe Bryant had recently just ended his deal with Adidas, and then he signed with Nike in the months that followed. So Nike and the culture and sneakerheads alike look at that game as a turning. Now, they did not give a confirmed date, but the expectations are that these will be available in the fall, winter of this year. All right, now there's some interesting drama here, and it's one of those things where we've heard this before. We always hear people talk about, free this person, free that person, free this person. And I get the sentiment behind it. I mean, I have wished for some of my peoples to be free, especially when I knew that they was either doing time for something that they didn't really do, or if they was sitting longer for something that was disproportionate to what they actually did. And Big Meech is calling out people over Lil Durk. And I think this situation is different. Now, first things first, I gotta say this because it's the internet. I don't personally wish for any person to be locked up and be away from their families, especially a young black man who's providing for other people through the money that he makes, through the things that he does. But if Dirk did what they allegedly say he did, I'm not so sure that I want to publicly be supporting that. And y'all can make it seem as corny or as lame or as uncool as you want it to be, but there is nothing cool about what they are allegedly saying that he did. Like, if he did that, do you stand behind that on principle? Like, come on. I want you to go look at yourself in the mirror, say that out loud, and tell me how you really feel about yourself. But Big Meech feels as though there ain't enough rappers who are shouting him out right now. And he's right. The temperature has definitely cooled on the amount of rappers that have been saying free Dirk in interviews, free Dirk in their music, free Dirk on social media. And part of it probably has to do with there has been new evidence and things that have started to surface, and the police, especially the feds, they can tie you into anything for a lot of different reasons, even if it doesn't actually mean what it looks like. And I'm pretty sure that some of these rappers who really are probably close to Dirk, like they really genuinely want to see Dirk come home. They really genuinely feel for Dirk. But they might have been on the phone with Dirk at some point in time while he was in the midst of doing something that they allegedly said that he did. And the two things could be completely unrelated, and it doesn't matter. The police, you could be on the joint talking about, hey man, yeah, we gonna go to the pool party and bring the girls through, and we gonna have, some of them things on the grill, and it's gonna be a whole little cookout. And that could literally mean exactly what I said. Like, they're going to such and such house where they're gonna have some girls at a pool, and they're gonna cook some food on the grill. But if you're wrapped up in some type of case or whatever, I could make that seem like code if I was a prosecutor, and I'm pretty sure things like that have happened before. It sounds like I'm exaggerating right now, but anybody like me who've ever actually been through something when it comes to some legal situations knows that anything can be manipulated to try to make you look like you guilty. That is just part of the whole deal. So I don't think that rappers are not screaming free Dirk because they don't want to see Dirk free. I think people are just trying to avoid getting touched by this situation. Pause. But Big Meech doesn't feel that way. I understand what he's saying. I just don't think that it is what it is. All right, let's jump into some NBA. First things first, we may be getting closer than we think to a Vegas expansion team. Not even just that, but two expansion teams. The league is looking at if they add any teams. The earliest season would be the 28-29 NBA season, which is not too far away from now. And the only two cities that are being considered would be Seattle and Las Vegas. And Las Vegas has been a team that a lot of people have been talking about for a while. As far as Seattle goes, Seattle, in our minds, would be a return of the Supersonics. Kind of like a similar situation where, Charlotte went to, the Hornets went to New Orleans. Then Charlotte was the Bobcats, but we saw a return of the Hornets back to Charlotte. The New Orleans became the Pelicans, that whole thing. This wouldn't be as complicated as that, but there would be a new expansion team that would take on the branding of the Seattle Supersonics in Seattle. In Las Vegas, there's a lot of people who are bidding right now in order to get this Vegas team. At one point in time, everyone thought that LeBron was going to be leading a group along with some investors, but that situation has since soured. We don't know if LeBron, after he retires, will end up joining one of these groups or end up joining the group that wins the bid, which honestly would be the easiest path for him to NBA ownership. Because, I mean, rather than him having to go put together the money himself, put together the other investors to hit the number that they would realistically need to hit, which is why I think that he completely fell back from the situation. It'd be much easier for him to just join the team that wins. Any team that wins this bid will love to have LeBron James as part of the deal. The leading group right now, or the newest group I'll say, is the Las Vegas Jacks, who are led by a Hall of Famer and a former NBA owner of the Suns, Jerry Colangelo, along with Vinny Del Negro, David Levy, Scott Colangelo, Jonathan Thomas, and former NBA player Jay Williams. They've recently announced an $8 billion bid with a total asset target of $12.5 to $13 billion. And it seems right now that they are the front runners to win this. Now, the other people in this situation are going to be the Vegas Golden Knights owner, Bill Foley, who has committed $300 million to revamp T-Mobile Stadium. T-Mobile Stadium would be where the new Vegas team would play short term until a full arena is built for them. So he's kind of hedging his bet, because even if he doesn't win the bid, he can still be involved in the Las Vegas Jacks situation. I don't know if he would be part of the ownership team, but who knows how he can't negotiate that. You have the Magic Group that's led by Magic Johnson and some investors, and another group called Thrive Eternal. Commissioner Adam Silver says that he wants clarity on the Vegas and Seattle situations by the end of the 2026 season. So we will know, A, if we are getting a expansion team, 2 expansion teams, and who will be the teams behind them within the next 12 months. All right, sticking with the NBA, let's get into some free agency updates. Wemby just signed a 5-year, $252 million contract with the Spurs as an extension, and he left $50 million on the table versus taking the max to give them some flexibility. So I think that that was a great move on both parts. I mean, the Spurs made the commitment to him long term, which, I mean, who wouldn't? And he also made that commitment back to them by not taking all the money he could have took to make sure that they can remain financially competitive, to keep the right team around him so they have chances to go out there and win a title. Donovan Mitchell signed a 4-year, $273 million extension with the Cavaliers, committing there long term. And again, this is another example of a star who took a team-friendly contract in order to give the team flexibility. He could have took more money, he took less money, even though saying less money than $273 million in the same sentence sounds crazy, but that is the reality here. And this is starting to become a trend, because if you notice, Jalen Brunson did the same thing the year prior, and some would say that that cap flexibility led to the New York Knicks title run. But in other free agency, not so news, I did say something last week about this Joel Embiid and Anthony Davis situation, right? And it was just a trade idea that was floated by CBS Sports, right? But there are some real teeth to it. And every Philly fan on TikTok has seemed to jump in the comments and tell me how wrong I am for reasons that make complete sense. And despite that, none of those reasons matter in this situation. What I said was that there was an idea that's being floated that the Sixers may trade Joel Embiid to the Wizards for Anthony Davis. The reason why they would be doing this is because there is conversations happening that suggest that teams making a trade for Davis would be an easier path for them to get LeBron James to sign to them. Now, people are saying, oh, well, why would they trade one guy with injury histories for another guy with injury history? For the thing that I just said, LeBron James. LeBron allegedly wants to play with Davis if he can make that happen. And if he can make that happen, it's a simple path to sign him. LeBron James has a few things that he has in mind of who his next team is going to be. And one of those things is he does not want to sign with a team where he is going to be required to be the main focus point. He does not want to be the number one option on offense. He does not want to be the number one facilitator. He does not want to be the number one option on defense. And so he's going to have to go to a team that has some players there already. He's going to need to go to a team that is a legitimate contender, or else there's no reason for him to sign with them, unless he knows that he can legitimately go in and compete for a championship. That's the reason why I think the Timberwolves is the best fit. But Philly is one of those teams that, with the moves that they recently made, bringing in LeBron James, that is a fit right there. He would not have to be the number one facilitator. He would not have to be the number one scoring option. And defensively, they have guys for that, especially if they bring in Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is a better defender than Joel Embiid is. Yes, they've both been injury prone. Yes, recently Embiid has played more games than Anthony Davis, but the difference maker is Anthony Davis can call LeBron and say, come on over. Joel Embiid cannot. And the Sixers aren't the only team. There are other teams in the LeBron sweepstakes, and I call it that because this is a situation where nobody could have predicted. Actually, it's funny. Somebody said in my TikTok comments, yo made a video about speculation. Well, let me break it down for you. Everyone makes videos about speculation. Every video that you've ever seen, whether it's on ESPN, broadcast TV, I don't care if it's Stephen A. Smith or Max Kellerman or whoever, when it comes to trades, drafts, and free agency, it's all speculation until it actually happens. No one actually knows what's going to happen until it does. Some people have more information to work with than others, like those guys that I mentioned, clearly got more access than me, but that doesn't mean that they can just predict something and it just happens. I've seen them be wrong just as much as I've seen them be right. And no one could have predicted that the Mavericks were going to trade Luka to the Lakers. And no one could have predicted that in that situation, AD was going to get traded to the Mavericks and end up at Washington. And then no one could have predicted that LeBron James would become a free agent who was going to be willing to take a veteran's minimum, because most of the free agents that are left right now are going to have to take veteran minimums or mid-level exceptions. A lot of teams who are contenders are salary cap strapped. LeBron James isn't taking a deal about money. He's taking a deal about winning. So when you trade a guy like Embiid for Anthony Davis, you are getting Davis back, a guy who's not going to play the 5 likely, who will play the 4, who's injury prone, sure, just like Embiid, but you also have the chance to get LeBron James at a veteran minimum. No one thought LeBron James and veteran minimum would ever be a thing. And that is why teams might be willing to gamble in ways that may not make sense to your average fan, because this is a relatively quiet NBA free agency of 421 players currently on contract. This is not including two-way players. 315 of them were already on their team's roster before free agency started. Only 29 players have actually switched teams due to free agency this year, and 40 more have moved teams via trades, which is a small number. And that's because the current CBA structure is clearly incentivizing, if you want to call it that, retention over rebuilding through outside players. But the result is, like I said, there's no teams out there with any real cap space to sign straight up free agents that weren't already like on their team and they had the luxury to be able to restructure a deal with them or re-sign them. So free agency is going to be a little bit lackluster outside of a few of the names that are still out there, like James Harden, LeBron James, DeMar DeRozan, Jalen Duran, and other names like that. So most teams with open spots really only have the veterans minimum to give up. Like whoever DeMar DeRozan signs with is going to take the veterans minimum. Unless James Harden re-signs where he was at, he's going to have to take the veteran minimum somewhere or a mid-level exception, depending on what team he goes to. So not only are there some quality veterans that are going to be available at a discount because that's the only way to make it happen, unless they decide they just don't want to play, there are some teams that might be able to stack a few of these guys together. So even though it is lackluster in terms of a lot of movement, we could end up seeing some interesting rosters come out of this weird free agency period. But I do have a question. Is a retention heavy CBA good for the league long term? Or is it just freezing the league's competitive balance all in one place? I don't know. It's something that I've really been thinking about, and I'm curious about your thoughts. And that's all I got. I appreciate y'all for hanging out with me today. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you like what you just saw. Go ahead and follow me on my socials. And until next time, my name is Wi-Fi, and culture lives here.